And we're live. Hey, everyone. It's time for Whiskey Charlie one more time. It's been a little while, but we're coming back here for this next month's show. And joining me tonight is everyone's favorite Gimp with the Limp, Nate, the Gimpy Gamer.
Hey, everybody. Nice to see you all again. Welcome back. All the good stuff.
Unfortunately, Kev's not going to make it tonight. He's got to take care of some stuff because, his kid got in a wreck, and he's okay. Everything's good. But he's got to take care of some business with that insurance. That'll take 2 or 3 days.
He needed a nap.
That definitely sucks. And joining us tonight is our very special guest, David Lent from the Centurions Review. And if you don't know the Centurions Review, you're going to learn all about it tonight. Dave is a really interesting guy, and he covers some really interesting and obscure stuff. So welcome to the show, Dave.
Thanks, Mo. Glad to be here. And, I wanted to thank you for something, Mo. I want to thank you for having those videos on Micro Game Design Group current titles, because no one else does that. I've done a few of the old titles, but you're the only person who's done the current ones. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. And they did some really great games, and I'm glad you were showing the older ones, and then I get to show the new ones, so we get to see a little bit of how it was and how it is now, and what's changed between the old and the new versions, and they're continuing to put more out. So you talk about your channel and how you got started covering games in general, and then what prompted you to cover the obscure stuff.
Oh, okay. Well, I've been playing games since I was a little kid. My dad's a war gamer, so originally, I think the first game he played was D&D when I was like 5 years old. I tried playing it with him. I did the best I could. I didn't really understand anything. And then he brought home Naval War, which was a card game from Neil Zimmer, a really fun game. I was actually able to play that one because it was so simple. And then over the years, he had tons of historical miniatures, and he had like Verdun, the Hex and Shit game that I learned to play when I was older. And I used to go to the conventions and stuff with my dad, and I'd see all these wonderful miniature games set up and stuff. And I liked the dealer area. And one thing I noticed is they had micro games in the dealer area. That's back in the days of metagaming, and I think later on TSR had some and so forth. And I thought it was just such a cool idea that you could have an entire war game in such a small package. So when I turned 9 years old, I think it was called Remember the Alamo, or the Alamo Remembered from TSR. I bought it, and I was able to figure out how to play it. I think years later, I found out I had 2 of the rules wrong, but for a little 9-year-old, that's not bad. So, and then as I got a little bit older, I started painting figures, and my dad and his friend had given me some figures for free to paint. And so I painted them up, and I was able to sell them because they were halfway decent. So what I started doing then was I was buying figures, painting them, and selling them. And after a while, I would paint figures for other people to make money. And that's how I made a lot of my money when I was in college. I was painting up boatloads of ancients for this one guy. This guy had 50-some 25 millimeter painted legions. It was just insane. I was painting for him like every day. So I made quite a bit of money in college with that. And over the years, I've been playing like 1 to 2 war games every week, new ones and stuff. So after years and years of playing them, I would read the reviews and watch the review channels online. And I was like, I should be doing this because I'm playing just as many games as these guys are. And some of the games I've played, no one's really heard of. So I'm a website developer, software engineer at Motorola. So I decided to start a website where I reviewed games called Centurions Review. So after a while, I noticed people were doing YouTube videos, so I started doing YouTube too. So I've had a lot of fun doing it, not really making any money. I'm actually losing money on it, but I don't care. I do it for fun. But yeah, it's just been a lot of fun, and I really enjoy talking to like the people on my YouTube videos and stuff, because I've learned quite a bit about gaming from, because even though I don't have that many viewers currently, the ones I do have are absolute fanatics, and some of these guys own like hundreds of war games and stuff, and they're like virtual encyclopedias. So I learn stuff from them every single day, just talking to them in the comments section and stuff. So that's basically how I got into it.
Nice. And below we got Stigler saying the punk rock band of war game review institution.
Yep, that's me.
That's the tagline right there. So you definitely have reach with our audience, that's for sure. And
that's good.
If you are not checking out Dave's channel, you need to check it out. It is he's also got the blog, as we said here, centurionsreview.com. So go check both of them out. Go subscribe.
So you started the blog first then, and then started the YouTube thing?
Yep.
Do you find that you get more traffic on the blog or the channel?
I get more on the blog. I get most of my blog's interesting, the demographics, because I can look and see what parts of the world the people are from who are reading my blog. More than 90% of the people who read my blog are from either Europe, Australia, or Japan. So only a very small number are from the United States, which is kind of interesting. So it sounds like wargaming is much more popular in Europe than it is in the United States.
I would probably agree with that. I would notice that it's most of my viewers come from overseas, but I was actually surprised. I can't remember when the last time I looked, but YouTube breaks it down to, roughly where your viewers are coming from. And I had a fair percentage that were, overseas. That surprised me. I expected the majority to be, continental US.
I'm gonna look in here real quick while we're talking. I want to see, but Stigler says, Dave, where do you hail from? I detected from Chicago accent.
Yep, yeah. Chicago. Right now I'm about 50 miles west of it in a little town called Pingree Grove. The big town near me is Elgin, but when I was a kid, I grew up in Chicago. I lived there until I was about 37 years old, and then I moved out to the suburbs.
Nice. John says, the Bears.
You're actually reminding me of my sisters. I got a couple of sisters that live in the Midwest, and they don't speak with that type of accent, but they speak very fast like you do. Down here in the South, we're real slow. And I was noticing when you started talking, you're like, bam, 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 bam. Just, I gotta admit, I don't watch as many of your videos as I should. I'm constantly busy, but I'm wondering if you're that fast when you're covering all of your material, man.
No, I'm probably a lot slower then. Yeah. A lot of times when I'm doing the unboxings or whatever I'm doing, I'm learning about the game as I'm doing the video. That may be the first time I've actually opened it up. So, yeah, I go much slower then.
Just out of curiosity, are you still doing the painting now?
Not as much as I should have. I should be. Last time I painted miniatures was about 2 months ago. I got about 50 28 millimeter cowboys that I've been painting up. I've got about half of them painted. I got to finish the other half. I got them at an auction for a reasonable price.
I smell a proposition coming on from Nate. Like,
no.
I want to get painted really fast.
No. I paint my own stuff. I do more fantasy type stuff like Warhammer, crap.
Yeah,
like
I've done a lot of that too. I used to paint a lot of Reaper miniatures and stuff. And back when I was a kid, Railpartha and Grenadier, and who was the other one? I can't remember what the Heritage. I used to paint those when I was really young.
Well, I was surprised. I mean, when you were talking about selling them, because I had looked at some of the professional stuff. I think some people advertise on like Etsy and eBay, things like that to sell their paintings. And I was surprised at first with the amount people were charging. But some of these models, I mean, they're literal works of art.
Right.
The stuff people can churn out. And that's hours, many hours, and skill practice to build that up. So I can see why someone would charge $200-300 for a handful of models, or even one model, depending on the size of it.
My paint jobs, I wouldn't say it's simple, but it's like on a typical fantasy figure, it would take me about an hour to paint it, and then about 10 minutes to grass the stand and make it look a little bit better. So you figure about an hour and 15 minutes in each figure I spend. But I know what you're talking about. Some of these guys have like PhDs and fine arts and stuff, and they'll spend hours and hours, and the thing looks like real when they're done with it.
Yeah.
Glazing and everything. Yeah, they do a great job, some of those guys.
So you're going for like what is it? My brother calls it table ready, like 3-color table ready then, right?
Oh no, I'm doing more than that. I'm doing probably about 7 colors, but it's whatever I can get done in about an hour and 15 minutes.
That's not bad. I've got a bunch of Blood Bowl teams I'm working on now. I was still talking to Rob about that. I want to get a little tournament going on, but it's just taking me forever to paint these things because I'll get an hour and I'll sit down, finally get moving, and my hands kind of shake when I paint, so I'm always having to try to prop myself up so I don't nick every little piece as I'm going along with it.
When I'm painting, like when you're doing the eyes and stuff, I do the same thing I would do like when firing a rifle, is just wait till you're between heartbeats to try and quick paint the eye, because you're not shaking as much between heartbeats.
Mm-hmm. Get that, you get as you're breathing out.
Yep.
Yeah. Stigler says, I must say it's refreshing to see an unboxing of a game that's been out for 30 years.
Yep. Yeah, I did an unboxing today of Starship Troopers. That's been out for 46 years.
Well,
good
bye,
game,
Mo.
though.
I think we lost Mo for a sec. He'll be back.
Okay.
I'm here.
Yeah. Oh, we lost your picture.
No, I just turned the camera off for a second because I got to
because you're
step up. And I
didn't want to.
Shut
Oh, shut up! You killed me.
Oh, there you go.
When he said Starship Troopers, I was like, I just got this last year. I've been looking for it, and it's held together with, I don't know if you can see right there, but there's a lot of like boxing tape there, and it was a used copy. Picked it up for $10.
You know that kills me. At WBC, I got a chance to buy a copy of Starship Troopers for something like $10,
Nice.
and I didn't take it up. For some reason, I got distracted or something, and I forgot to go back and look, and it was gone. I was so upset. Good. That way. They're getting ready to go to bed. Sorry.
We got the co-guest stars in here tonight. Everybody's favorite guest stars.
I've got another guest star in the way. I'm building my own little army, one baby at a time. Yeah, I'm snipping after this. We're done.
Stigler says, speaking of snipping, he's saying, can you Clipper guys make money rounding corners for other people? Possible. If I could, I'd do it.
I've actually never clipped a counter in my entire life. I'm just satisfied with the counters the way they are.
Really?
Yeah. I've never clipped a counter.
I've noticed that with some of those older games that it just, depending on the publisher and manufacturer, that some of them can have very just rough corners. That doesn't just drive you nuts?
I guess it does a little bit, but I'm used to it.
Two-fisted.
That's why you got to get the wife doing it, man. She's clipped a few games for me. I'll just get them all stacked up, and she'll sit there and watch movies and just clip, clip, clip away. Nice. Oh, it's the best. When you got a wife that'll clip counters, you know you did well.
Now, I posted this in the chat already, but for those who are not already subscribed to Dave's channel, here it is up here. It's kind of a long, weird-looking thing, but you can also do a search for Centurions Review and go ahead and subscribe, because Dave really does a lot of unique stuff that is really, really cool, because like we're talking games 20, 30 years old that a lot of people that are new to the hobby may not be aware of. People that are aware of these games, that have seen them, may have forgotten all about them. And they go, oh, yeah, I wanted that when I was like 20 years old or something. Hey, no, I want it now that you just reminded me. I'm going to go hunt down a copy. So it's pretty cool to see those games.
We do keep getting a little sidetracked here. Why don't you tell us about some of the older stuff, the general games that you go for?
Oh, okay. I like Avalon Hill. I like everything from Avalon Hill except for a couple games. SPI, I really like their stuff, especially I think, who's that designer? Jim Dunnigan. He's only made one game I didn't like. What was that? Wreck of the BSM Pandora. I think I didn't like. Voyage of the BSM Pandora from him was excellent, though. And I like the games from the old Ares magazine. Tons of micro games. It's pretty rare that I find a micro game that I don't like that much. Usually I like them. One of the things I really like about micro games and folio games and the smaller magazine games is usually when I play a war game, I only have about 2 hours to play it, like on the Saturday or something. So those you can actually finish, where some of these other games, if you got something with like a 67-page rule book and a scenario that takes 4 hours, I mean, that's like something where I got to like schedule around it to play it. Whereas these smaller games, I can just play them without having to schedule it.
That's true. So, I mean, you got those folio games you can knock out in an hour, 2 hours.
Yep.
And the 67-page rulebook, you get through turn 1 in 4 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
So I take it then you don't like leaving a game set up on the table for an extended period of time then?
No, not really. I mean, I have. I've done that with some GMT games, but usually I try to avoid it.
Oh, those some of my favorites are the long ones. Right now, I've got Absolute Victory set up, and it took me days just to get that set up on the table. Between clipping the counters, reading the 3 rule books that come with the game, each of those about 60 pages, and then getting it all set up, deployed, all the units across the world map. I mean, you could play 3 or 4 folio games on the amount of time it just took just to set the game up to actually start playing.
Now,
You gotta try it one day.
The folio games, I want to ask you, what are your favorite current folio games?
Oh, I think it's called Zama from Decision Games about Hannibal versus Scipio when Scipio finally defeated Hannibal. It's not the best game out there, but what I like about it's actually got some issues, but it's a fun game, and it actually feels like you're playing the Battle of Zama, even though it's such a simple game. That's one of the things in historical games, I like it where the game makes it feel like you're actually fighting that battle or something. I don't like the ones that get like so detailed that you're like so caught up in minutia that you're losing the big picture. So that's why I usually go for the more abstract ones, because I usually get more of a feeling of what the battle was like. It's kind of counterintuitive. You would think with the more complicated one, you would get the more of the feeling what the battle's actually like. But usually I'm like so focused on finding some obscure rule in the 67-page rule book and stuff that it distracts from the fun and the kind of feeling of the battle.
So you want the distilled experience then?
Yeah, I would say so.
You're not worried about I've got a roll for what's that rule? The pasta rule?
Right. I know what you're talking about in that North African game. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I give
the theater of the mind is what it is right there. You get to fill in the blanks with the abstract, from the abstraction with the theater of the mind. What you're doing, you're playing it out in your head.
With what you're talking about, do you like the what's the time frame? Like the medieval time frame, sword, shields, and that type of warfare? Are you into that?
Yeah, I am. I'm not an expert on the historical period, but I do play those games. There was one in Strategy and Tactics. I forget. I think it was called, was it Man in Arms or something? That was pretty good. My friend Len and I used to play that several times.
I was going to say, if you are, I actually just started recently covering, and I'm going to butcher this again. We'll say it down in the comments, but it's a game from back in the day. It was called the Cry Havoc series, right? And now it's like the Norman Saga. They've revamped it, re-released it. I think it was originally released in the early 80s, and they've updated the components and everything. And the designer contacted me and got me some copies that I'm playing through now. But it's the individual hex encounter, man-to-man type combat. So individual knights and light infantry and cavalry and archers.
That sounds
javelins. Cool. I freaking love it. And if you like rules light game, right, not too heavy, this one would definitely fit into it. So it's Ager, however you'd say it, Ager. Sanguinus is the one that I'm playing. There's an expansion for it and some others in the series. But like I said, they've updated the components. And I'm not trying to like pimp them. They didn't pay me or anything like that. I just really like the game, and you seem like the type who would enjoy it.
Cool.
The counters were the big thing back in the day. They used to have like really thin counters. And they've actually updated it now to where it's nice, thick counters like we're used to in just normal war games. And it's great stuff. You got guys invading a town, fighting with swords, jabbing through windows and trying to take over the buildings. Knights charging each other down. You've got counters to represent them getting off their horses, fighting on foot, all that type of stuff. But it's not rules heavy. So there's the rule book, I think, is of actual rules, something like 16 or 17 pages. So it's not.
That's not bad.
Horribly. No. It's definitely great. So if you like that time period, I absolutely recommend it.
All right, I'll check it out.
Yeah, it definitely sounds cool. The Stigler over here is arguing here.
What the hell's he arguing about?
Is there really a 67-page rule book? Most complex games are around 40 pages, if that.
Well, I'm including like the scenarios and stuff like that in the rules. So you'd have like a 40-page rule book and then like a 25-page playbook or scenario book or something. So I'm talking about the total number of pages of everything.
Oh yeah, I said, well, Fields of Fire, that's like 60 some odd pages. And
At
what's the
least.
other one? I'm trying to remember the other one. Oh,
Dude,
Red Storm. Red Storm's like 70 pages.
think of, and I'm not trying to hate on them right now, but Lock and Load Tactical is what? That rule book's something like 300 pages now, but only 150 pages of it are like actual rules.
Yeah.
A lot of it's extra stuff, extra player aids and stuff like that's actually in the rule book, but the rule book is fairly massive on that one.
Red Storm is 54 pages.
Yeah, I would say the average rule book for just a general run-of-the-mill war game is going to be at least, 40 pages?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say for most of the big box games, 20 to 40, would be pretty typical. Yeah,
once you add in the errata, that's a good point, John. That's an extra 10 for some games.
I kind of look at it like when I'm looking at the complexity of a game, that if your rule book is 40 plus pages, your complexity doesn't need to be 5 stars or 5 out of 10, whatever. Like, no, your complexity is higher than that. Be honest. That was one of my gripes with Fields of Fire, is that they rated it as 4 or 5 on complexity. I'm like, nope, you guys are sorely mistaken on that one, and everyone agreed with it.
Yeah, that's one of the drawbacks. But I'm kind of like Dave when it comes to those older games, like the Micro Game Design Group. Those type of games that are smaller rule books. They're pretty tight. They're rules light. Not always are they going to be even. Their counter density is going to be kind of low. They can be decent counter density. It depends, but getting you into the game is the key. You're looking at 4, 6, or 8 pages of rules. You can jump in, you can learn that on the fly, and by the end of the first turn, you probably know how to play the game with it. You can look at the rules, and 2 hours later, you're done, and maybe you just start over again and play.
Right. Can y'all flesh something out for me? You guys keep saying, was it Micro Design?
They're a Canadian company that makes micro games. They're usually about $30, including shipping to the United States for one, which isn't bad. It basically comes in a Ziploc format. It's about the size of a folio game, but it doesn't have the folder.
Okay, so what, we're talking like a sheet of counters, a couple of maps, and small rulebook type deal?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't heard of them. I hadn't played any of their stuff, so I have to.
I think
check them out.
The owner is Kerry Anderson, I believe. He's made a bunch of games over the years. Can't remember. I think he made a game or two for metagaming way back when in the late 70s or early 80s. Don't quote me on that, but I think he did.
He's also got one coming out now from Compass, Battle for Armageddon. It's going to be published by Compass. And Brian Train is part of that group, too.
Cool. Oh, actually, I think Task Force Games is who he made them for, not metagaming. He made
And Kabuki is here.
Hello.
Hey, Kabuki.
Rob's show. Coming over from Rob's show.
Yeah. Nice little crossover. This is what I like to see, the crossover. Every time I go on Rob's show, Kabuki's always on there. Like I think it is she, right?
Yes.
Yeah, like she lives on there,
She lives on all of the shows. She's everywhere.
That's part of the reason we do this, Dave, is that everyone gets kind of crossed over. So people who watch me, meet Mo. People watch Mo, go see you, and like, oh, he covers stuff that I like. Because strangely enough, there are a lot more people covering war games now. It seems like it's kind of exploded in the past, like 2-3 years since I got started with it. Because there was only a couple when I first started.
Yeah, there's a new channel that's really good. It's all science fiction war games and all old ones. I can't remember the name of it. It's Sci-Fi War Games or something. He comes out with like 1 or 2 a week. He does a good job. He shows you what the components look like, how to play it, and then gives you a conclusion. I really enjoy watching his channel.
That's awesome. And then, of course, we have the one that we talked about just a few weeks ago. And I know his subscriptions went up dramatically. Not saying it's from our show, but I think a lot of people. He definitely did get some from our show, but he got some from other shows as well, because I think everybody kind of caught on pushing this young man. Is Tom the Wargamer, a 12-year-old wargamer from England, and he's done a great job at growing an audience really fast, and it's fantastic. They always talk about the graying of the hobby. It's great to see a young kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Really interested in war games.
You bring up a good point about the graying of the hobby. Like when I go to a convention, it's like being in an old folks' home. I'm middle-aged, and I'm one of the youngest people there. Most of the hex and shit wargamers are like 60, 70 years old. And it kind of scares me. It's like, my God, it's like in 10 or 15 years, are they all going to be gone and not replaced by new people?
Now they'll get replaced, because the graying of the hobby is something that's been talked about for decades. And I think it's kind of like one of those things where it's almost like a standard progression. When you're younger, you're playing, especially when you first get into games, you play everything. I want to own all the games. And then as you play them, you go, wow, I've got 300 games and I only play like 10 of them. So then you trade them, sell them, whatever. And then you start narrowing down things that you really like. You like RPGs, or you like the dudes on the map games, or you like war games, Euros, whatever, 18xx games. Then you start specializing into like 18xx and other economic games, and then war games. And once you get into war games, the other games kind of go to the wayside. Same with 18xx. You still play those games, but you're really concentrated on one style. And that usually happens, I notice, as gamers get a little older, they start getting more serious. Not saying that the younger people don't play the serious games, just as you get more older, I think it's because you want to narrow down your quality game time. Like, I don't want to have 2 or 3 hours I can play. I want to make sure I'm playing this game, this type of game. I think that's part of it.
Yeah, you bring up a good point.
I think part of it comes from the fact that, all right, think about us, Mo, like when we were in the military. If I had been able to finish out my career time, when you're actually in the military, you generally don't have a whole lot of time to spend around playing games, right? But say you've spent 20 some odd years in the military, you get out, you're 40, 50 years old, you're wanting something to do, you're looking for a hobby. I think that's why the hobby does appear to be grayish, because a lot of them are guys who are finishing up a career in whatever, more than likely the military, and they're looking for some type of hobby to fill their time with, and they stumble upon wargaming and dig into it. So a lot of them aren't finding out about it until they're in their 40s, 50s. So it is going to kind of look grayer, but it's stayed that way perpetually. So I think you are right. The type of game does attract a more mature audience.
It tends to, I think. And, but then again, I think like it really comes down to, I think games themselves have different cycles. I'm not saying that war gamers don't play simple, fun family games with their friends and family. Of course they do. They're gonna, whatever's fun. If it's late night, especially after you played all day, you're not going to want to play another heavy game. So you play maybe a little social deduction game or something like that, some dice chucker or something. They're fun. One of the games I've always liked, I can't think of the name of it because I always call it Roman Bingo, but that's not the name of the game. Kabuki, you'll probably remember what it is. But it's a Roman themed game, and it's basically just you're playing bingo is essentially what you're doing. But it's a really fun game, and it's a light game. But I could play that before or after playing war game, preferably after, because I'd rather get to the war game first and then play that, and then at the end of the night play something a little lighter. But yeah, if you notice, younger people tend to get more into if they're going to get into serious gaming, they're going to get into the 40K and stuff like that, because that takes time and effort, and it's cool, and you're going to build all these models and paint them up and everything. That takes a good effort and a lot of money. And when you're young, hey, it's only money. You don't care. You want to have all the things,
Well, yeah, you're right. That's what happened with me when I was younger. My brother and I, we'd sit around, we'd play 40K or anything else, Blood Bowl. That was our big stuff when we were younger. And hell, I didn't even learn of wargaming until maybe 5 years ago. Didn't even know it existed. It's not advertised in the right places.
That's true.
And think about it. You go to the game store, right? Your favorite local game store. Most of them carry a few, if any, war games. The ones around me, I don't know about you, Dave, but there's a handful of game stores around me, and the one that actually carries a decent stock of war games, the owner plays war games. He actually works for MMP.
That's cool.
So
yeah, there's one in Illinois that carries war games. It's called Games Plus and Mount Prospect. They got a few hundred war games there. It's a really nice store.
haven't
So
been
what's
out
your
there.
go-to games, Dave?
I'm sorry.
What are some of your go-to games?
Go-to games, micro games, mostly Ogre, Kason 68, Suez 56, Creature That Ate Sheboygan.
I love
What
that
else?
name.
Wait,
I'm
you think
sorry?
Ogre?
Yeah.
Ogre's not a micro game.
Oh, the
Yeah,
original is
it
a micro game that went for $1.99 in the late 1970s. It was originally published by Metagaming, and they re-released it in what was it, about 2008 for $1.99 again from Steve Jackson Games.
Yeah, it was $2.99, I think, wasn't it? It was
Or
$2.99.
$2.99?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
a little bag. Yeah, because I
Yeah.
bought 2 of them. Yeah.
But there's 3 different Ogres. They're all the same. They're all similar. You have the Ogre, the micro game, Ogre, the board game, and Ogre, the miniature game. All 3 of them are good.
And they all
Now,
use
we are talking about like that big mech tanky thing.
Yeah, it's the big tank, and everything else just tries to destroy the big tank. You can attack its. I think you can attack its treads or different parts of it and stuff. It's kind of cool. So it's like you have the Goliath, but there's like 50 Davids going after the Goliath.
I've always seen the game, but it didn't look like it was very solitaire friendly, so I never thought about trying it out. Oh, it is solitaire friendly?
Sorta, yeah.
No, sorry.
I've played it solitaire.
Oh, Kabuki is not only on every show, but she says, Ogre, I own every single version of Ogre that has ever come out, other than the newest 6th edition. So if anybody wants to get Kabuki something for the holidays, that's what you got to get her.
Y'all give me 2 minutes. Put them inside. I'll be right back.
Yeah, go ahead.
Talk amongst yourselves.
So, and Kabuki says the same thing, that Ogre is completely solo friendly, and it is. I mean, there's not a lot of games that are, well, I shouldn't say there's not a lot, but I think pretty much almost every game can be played solo, even the games with hidden information, because, you know, if you play any of the Command and Colors, for example, that's a hand of cards that you really technically can't play solo, but you can. You just pick up a hand of cards and you switch to that side, look at them and go, okay, I'm going to do this. Boom, put the cards down, grab the next hand of cards for the other side, and figure out what you're going to do from there. You just leave it up to yourself, and you can, it takes a little adjusting, but when you do that a few times and you're honest with yourself, you go, I'm not trying to win. I'm trying to play the game. I'm just trying to experience the narrative.
When I play a game solo, if it's not like a solitaire game and you're just playing a 2-player solo, what I try to do is, to get the best game experience, you got to try and not root for one of the sides. So for each side, you do what's in their best interest. I know notice sometimes I'll be playing a game and I'm like, and it seems like I'm focusing on the Americans winning. Well, that kind of ruins the game. You want to make sure you do what's in the best interest of both sides, so it turns out to be a decent game.
Mm-hmm. True.
Yeah, but is it really possible to do that? Because I always, in my mind, like whether or not I say it, I always think in my mind, this is my side. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's hard, but I try my best with it.
I definitely can do it. Even believe it or not, the ultimate test is if I'm going to play a game at the tactical level, it has Marines against anybody, and I'm not cheating. We're not cheating, but I'm not trying extra hard for the Marines. That's how I know I can do that.
No, if Marines in it, I'm always pulling. Got to have the Marines.
But I try to create a narrative. I mean, when I'm playing the Marine side, I'm like, okay, let's go hose these guys, and boom, boom, boom. Then when I'm playing whoever's the bad guys, I'm like, all right, let's go kill the Marines, you know, and I'm looking at it from that perspective, you know, and switching mindsets like that. What made me do that, or allowed me to do that, was looking at the game as not, I'm playing a game as one side, or this is what the game is. I'm literally playing 2 games in one. I get to play both sides, and I get to play both sides to the best of my ability and try to beat myself, and at the same time not worry about winning, but worry about creating the narrative. And I think that is the best part right there.
Yeah, good point.
I actually got a funny one for you. Remember, I'm covering Absolute Victory, you know, big game right now, and one of my gripes with it is they don't have enough Marines in it because there's only 2 Marine counters.
What?
Right? There's only 2 for the whole Pacific. So I created extra counters for it.
How the heck do you have 2 Marine counters for the Pacific?
I don't think it's enough. Well, the Marine counters, to be fair, they did do it the right way. They're better than the Army counters, so they have better stats. So I was like, nope, there's no way we'd have more Marines there in the Pacific. So I created like 4 extra counters, like printed them off, put them on actual counters, and included them in the game because I was like, nope, we gotta have enough for them.
Kabuki's asking, have you ever used the solo system, the print and play card deck that helps guide the bot side?
I've never heard of it.
Neither have I. Kabuki, you're going to have to elaborate a little more on that. I do have a tactical AI deck, but I don't have that one. And it was something I bought. It wasn't a print and play.
Wait, is that different than like the Lock and Load Tactical Solo AI deck?
This is system agnostic. You can use it for anything. And that's kind of...
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
No, I've never heard of that one.
And Mo, have you ever played a game against your beloved core? Drop and give me a hundred. Of course. Hey, if the Marines are on one side and there's another enemy force on the other, I'm going to play both sides. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, but you're going to be rooting for the Marines, and the Marines are going to win.
I don't have to root for them. I know they're going to win. But they wouldn't be too proud if they were the many. They'd be the army.
Yes, John, you are correct, but the game needs more than 2 counters for the entire Pacific. It's kind of hard to do the island hopping campaign if you only have the ability to cover 2 islands.
Yeah,
that's my one little niggle.
Oh, there it is there, the solo system. And it's actually the lettering is like Han Solo, like Star Wars. So there is the solo system right there that Kabuki pointed out to us. So I'm going to have to check that one out and see if I've ever downloaded that. I don't think I do have that.
I'm assuming that's specifically designed for war games, or is that just designed for any game?
It says here, concept of the game Soul System is not a game per se, rather it is an artificial intelligence system that provides an unpredictable opponent for your multiplayer games. With a few adjustments, this can make a wide selection of games capable of being played solitaire. Cool.
Okay.
So worth checking out if it's a print and play too. You can't beat that. And I do have a couple of older games aside from Starship Troopers that I picked up. I'm a sucker for Three Musketeers, for the whole Musketeer saga. I love all that stuff. And I was at BGG, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, and it might have been longer. There was somebody had a lot of older games. You would have loved it, Dave. There was a booth with a bunch of older games, and one of them in there was the Three Musketeers game. And
I might have played that.
Is it like a real thin brown box, like full-size box?
It might have been. I can't remember what it looks like, but I think I've played it. I think my friend Len has it because he likes the Three Musketeers too, and we played one. That might have been it.
I'm trying to see the Queen's something or other. I'll have to look at it here, but it's an older game. I'm looking it up here. No, that's not it. But it's one of the older games, and I was wondering what were your thoughts on it because you play all these older games. You probably played it. I have not played it yet. It's still in my bin to play.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think we liked the game when we played it. There's another game that's kind of Three Musketeer-esque. It's not really the Three Musketeers. It's from Yaquinto. It's kind of like, I can't remember what it was called. You have a map, and one part of the map you're in a bar, and you have like a bar fight. You can have like bar fights in there, and the other part of the map is a ship. So I remember playing that, and I think you plan 3 actions in advance or something. You write down like orders and stuff. It's been a while. It's been a few years, but yeah, that one was pretty decent.
That's pretty cool because I mean the whole the Musketeers story is just fantastic, and there's been so many redos of it. And my favorite one, I think, is the latest one that they did on BBC a few years ago. They only ran 3 seasons, but cool part about it was a modern take, but they did stay true to the story in a lot of ways, and then kind of added some new nuances to it to make it more modern. But it was 3 seasons, and it was a definitive beginning and a definitive ending, which I thought was great because so many times you see these series that come out after 3 years, they cancel it, and it's like, wait a minute, what was going to happen next season? This one, you're like, the story, which I thought was pretty good.
So you're saying a modern Musketeers, like they were using guns instead of swords?
Well, they did use musketeer. They did use guns because they're called musketeers.
Well, you know what I mean. I'm talking about like real guns, not musket ball guns.
No, they're using the muskets and the swords and everything. It's still very much set in France in that time period, but it's like a modern take. Had a little bit modern feel to it.
I was going to say, like, France went past that time period.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Mo. I'm just giving you a little bit of hell there, buddy.
No, it's good. It's good stuff, and you can actually see it. I think it's on Prime or Netflix or something like that. But I love that because I love all those types of stories. And just like we were talking, some of us are talking online today about Flying Colors, and I've been kind of tempted to get that from GMT because
it's good.
I've never played, but I've always been a fan of the big ships era, mainly because of shows like Hornblower, Master and Commander. I love that whole thing.
I remember Master and Commander, the movie. That was cool. I saw that in the theater.
Great movie.
Yeah.
If you've not seen the Hornblower series, that's another great series too.
I'll tell you, if you like the old-timey sailing, the ships, that type stuff, Flying Colors, absolutely, definitely get it. It's really good, but get the first one, the Flying Colors one, is the name. I forget what the second one is. I think it's Serpents of the Sea, and then third is I got it. The name's at the tip of my tongue. I can't remember.
White Ensign or something like that.
Well, yeah, White Ensign. But the second one, it doesn't have big ships in it. It's got smaller ships in it, or mainly smaller ships. So there's ships that are like double-size counters, right? Like a rectangle instead of a square. That one has more of the, I guess you would call them like 5th or 6th rates and cannonades or whatever they were called. But it's mainly the smaller ships that are involved in the second one. I'm not hating on it. I mean, that was in the time period too. But I like the first rates, second rates, and 120 gun ship, that type stuff. So if you're wanting that, go with Flying Colors, which they've got like the 3rd edition released recently. So
going back to the Musketeers briefly, as Kabuki had threw a little salt your way, said you get shot by a musket, you will call it a real gun, I bet.
Oh, you know what I meant? I meant like real guns, as in like real guns, like
modern guns.
Modern guns, like guns.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Now, what new games have you gotten? Not the older games, Dave. I'm talking new games. What recent purchases have you got?
New ones from DVG, Castle Itter. That's the most recent new one I've gotten. I reviewed that a while back. That was a solo game. You can play it 2-player too. That was kind of cool. It's about that crazy battle in World War II where the Germans and U.S. were on the same side temporarily. It's just some complete craziness, but it's actually a fun game to play. You can even crew tanks and stuff, which is something you can't normally do in a States. It's just basically a States of Siege game, but it's got more detail in it and stuff. Very interesting game.
Well, he's got that whole system going. He had Pavlov's House and Castle Itter, and then now he's got the new one coming out, Soldiers and Postmen's Uniforms, which, Gimpy, you're already starting to do your video series on that. I have yet to shoot any video on it, but I have the prototype on the table, along with another prototype for a game that is actually in development right now that I'm playtesting, and I think that'll be really cool. It's a game from Greg Smith, so you play the hunters and stuff like that, you'll know what to expect there. This one has to do with armor. It's the tank ace one, so that one's awesome. Going to be good. That one's going to be good.
I will say though, if you like Castle Itter, you'll probably like the new one too. The Soldiers and Postmen's Uniforms. Did you ever play Pavlov's House, the first one?
No, I've heard about it. I've heard good things about it.
See, I liked Castle Itter better than Pavlov's House because it had more of the tactical aspect. You were talking about the tank with it, right?
Yeah.
The tank and moving the characters around. It had more of that tactical feel, that's States of Siege feel to it. I think that the Soldiers and Postmen's Uniforms is kind of hitting that sweet middle spot between the two of them, because it's got the house kind of like Pavlov's House did, but it's a bigger representation. And it's also got a fairly sized map board similar to the castle and Castle Itter, where you've got the forces coming in from all the different directions. So it's kind of like a mix between Pavlov's house and Castle Itter.
Plus, you have the
Without-
elevations too, right?
Yeah, multiple elevations of the thing. What it doesn't have is that strategic feel, running supplies, which was honestly my least favorite part of Pavlov's house. The grander aspect, trying to get supplies and artillery drops and things of that nature. I like the smaller aspect, keeping the forces from getting to the house and then fighting them off from within the house. So this one is really hitting that sweet spot. Neat story too, stuff that I didn't know too much about. I like how David Thompson includes the history in it, you know, about how the soldiers are fighting off, and even the counters themselves are all named after the people that actually fought there. It's got their pictures on it.
Right.
If you could get it. It's really awesome that he honors them like that, you know?
Yep, I agree.
And Kabuki's saying that David Thompson's been a superstar recently and the Undaunted games, which is very true. Nick, hey Nick, he's saying Woot, Master and Commander series by Patrick O'Brien. Better know your naval terminology. And the upcoming Sniper Elite.
Oh yeah, he's got Sniper Elite coming too.
Yeah.
Dude, anything by David Thompson. Dave, I mean, just cover that. David Thompson, awesome. I'm a fanboy. What's that good one? If you're into sci-fi, For What Remains.
Yeah, I saw he did a video on No Enemies Here about that one where he was talking about it. Yeah, I've been meaning to get that actually.
Yeah, you like it.
Remember, there's 3 versions of it.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yep, there's 3 versions of the game, and depending on what type of combat should probably determine which version you get. There's one that has mechanical forces fighting the guerrilla fighter type deals. That's what do they call it? The Combine versus guerrillas, basically. There's one that has like knights using swords and stuff fighting like psychics. And then there's one that has the necromancers fighting like earth monsters. So kind of look at it. You can tell by looking at which one you want. So if you want more like future weapon type stuff, you know which one to get. If you like necromancy type stuff, get the one with the dead guy on the front of it. And the cool part is they're all interchangeable. So you can get them and then interchange the parts and have all the different factions fighting with each other.
That's cool.
And
I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a David Thompson fanboy.
Never heard of the guy. We call him Baby Herman on the show because he's like Mark Herman. He just keeps cranking out winners, one after the other. And it's fantastic to see him have that level of success and just keep going. Just not a one-shot wonder at all. Just keeps cranking them out. And Undaunted is going to be, that's an evergreen title right there. I think that'll stay around for a long time. And they'll keep pumping out different. He's just got North Africa in there, and he's going to do, what's the next one he's doing? Is it Pacific he's doing or East Front?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
But he's doing more, in that type of series. You can just keep doing them, which is great. And from a company perspective, that's what they want because they can keep printing those and they can keep making money, and he can keep making money too. So it's fantastic to see that level of success coming for David, and wish him nothing but the best on that.
Well, I think that's his biggest success, isn't it? The Undaunted series, because it's such a gateway game.
Probably because it's more. Yeah, it's much more of a gateway. But, when it comes to the Pavlov's house and Undaunted, the other one, Castle Litter, and then the upcoming one, Soldiers in Postmen's Uniforms, that whole trilogy right there of those 3 tells its own little story. And, the Valiant Defense series. And like you were saying that you weren't as crazy about Pavlov's house as you were about Itter because it's just tactical picture on Castle Litter, which is great. The other one gives you more of the, the operational, the supply, and then the tactical, strategic and tactical. And it does feel like you have to bounce back and forth. You have to switch hats and think differently for each portion of it. But I thought that was also kind of cool about it. That gave it its own charm. Because you're looking at the down close on the street level, but then you're stepping way back here and you're looking at, okay, I need to move, I need to do this, and this to have good communications, get good support in there, and then move forces, and then down here, this is where the battle's won. But you see how decisions up top can ripple down to the low end at the tactical level, which I thought was pretty neat aspect of that game.
Well, I think that's just going to show the difference in taste that people have. Just like we were talking about earlier, how David prefers, or not Dave, but Dave prefers the smaller, the folio stuff. I like the bigger stuff. It's going to be just like that with the games themselves. Some people like the strategic, the operational. Some people prefer tactical. It's just going to depend on your personal preference.
Now, Kabuki's saying that she digs Warfighter and BBG, but not sure about the fantasy version personally.
Isn't there a zombie? I've never played Warfighter, but I could have swore I heard there's a zombie version of it too.
There is. They have done everything for it. There's zombies, there's undead, Japanese, samurai, all the different versions of World War II. So pretty much everyone who fought in World War II. There's
the only thing
Polish,
Soviet. They should have the undead presidents. That would be funny.
Well, it's funny she mentions the fantasy. They actually just sent me some of the prototype files for fantasy, so I could eyeball those over and do kind of like a little preview on it, and it looks awesome. I think it's going to be my absolute favorite of the bunch. Really? It looks kind of like you took Dungeons and Dragons and smashed it into Warfighter, right? You can level up your character. You can fight orcs and goblins and kobolds and go on quest and get it. If I remember correctly, I only glanced at the cards, but I think you can get different types of gear like swords and archery and battle hammers, all that other type of stuff that you would imagine. So if you took a Dungeons and Dragons game and put it into Warfighter, you would have this. It looks awesome. The graphics look awesome. It's hard to describe because I've only glanced at all this stuff right now, but it looks like it's more than just like flipping the card over to go to a different skill base. Like you're actually leveling your character, getting new gear, doing quests. So if you're into that aspect and you're not really into the Warfighter thing, but you would be if it was set in fantasy, they've nailed it.
Yeah, you should check it out, Dave. I think you'd really enjoy it.
Cool. Yeah, I will.
Stay tuned. I'm going to be doing just a quick preview of the cards, just doing like a digital video, just showing the files and kind of going over all of it. So I'll have that up later this week if you want to take a look at it.
Yeah, I'll take a look. Thanks.
Yeah, and Kabuki's saying if you do steampunk, I'm out. For whatever reason, that turns me off. Not a fan of steampunk.
I got a friend who's running he's got his own role-playing game he made called Wilderness Adventure, and they're doing a steampunk thing. I guess some people like that era. Well, he likes a lot of the pulp stuff too.
One of the things I was going to touch on was, you just brought it up, is before the show, we were talking about games you're designing. So talk about some of your designs.
Oh, okay. Well, the one I have that's closest to completion, the mechanics are done and stuff. It's fully play tested. I just got to make the rules coherent. That's the hard part. Writing the rule book's the hard part, to writing it where someone can understand it. But that one's called Halfling Dungeon Delve. It's influenced by The Castle from Mayfair Games, which is a micro game from the early 1980s. And it's also influenced a little bit by Death Maze, and since it's influenced by Death Maze, they'll have a few similarities to 4 Against Darkness, because 4 Against Darkness is essentially a reskin of Death Maze from SPI that uses pen and paper instead of counters. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. What's one of the interesting mechanics about it, if you encounter a monster, you can either bribe the monster, but only certain monsters can be bribed, or you can fight it, or you can run. But if you try to run, he gets a free swipe at you, or you can grab and run, which means that you attempt to steal the treasure in the room and leave the room, but the monster gets a free swipe at you, and if he hits you, then you have to stay in the room. And he hits you one more time. So there's all sorts of different options you can do when you encounter a monster. It's completely solitaire, so I just wanted to make sure there was a lot of decisions in it, and there's spells and scrolls, and obviously you get keys to get into certain rooms or to get in the room with the portal, so you can go rescue the princess from the jail, and of course a lich is guarding the princess, and you have to defeat the lich in order to get the princess. There's vampires in it, and of course there's a cross you can find. If you have the cross, you can just use it to dispel the vampires and not have to deal with them.
Now, how big is the dungeon for this? Is it something that evolves, or is it already preset?
Yeah, it's preset. There's 3 levels to it. It all fits on an 11 by 17 map because I want the game, whenever it gets published, which may not be for several years because I'm so busy, even though I only have to write the rule book. But here's what I wanted. I wanted it to have an 11 by 17 inch map, fit in a Ziploc bag, and have exactly 40 counters. The reason for that is because I want it to sell for either $9.95 or $9.99. I don't want it selling for $10 or $10.01. I want it selling for less than $10 because it's so hard to find a war game for less than 10. So that's like my goal.
Nice. That's an interesting goal to have, is to keep it under a certain price point.
Yeah.
And have you talked to any publishers about it to get some tips on, publishing the game?
Not yet, but there's a few. After I get the rule book fleshed out, I'm going to create a few prototypes and send them to a few manufacturers. I have a few in mind. Basically, I'm going to send it to the ones send it to the ones that are currently marketing micro games, because I assume they'd be the ones interested. Like a game, or a company that makes big box games probably wouldn't be interested in it. So I would just try to get it published by the micro game publishers.
So you're going to send it over to Kerry?
I might, I was thinking maybe Decision Games too, since they make mini games. They have some mini games that cost $9.95, so it would fit in there perfectly. And just like this game, they have an 11 by 17 inch map and exactly 40 counters.
See, now being that you got this game and it has vampires in it, you do have a good question from the crowd here. John says, so my question is, if you were a disciple of Islam, would a crescent kill a vampire?
A cross doesn't actually kill a vampire. It just sends it away. It runs from it. So yes, a crescent would, because it actually just has to be a holy symbol. So a Jewish star would do it. A cross would. Islamic crescent, any of that would dispel a vampire. Why
do I smell a Mel Brooks type of movie here, where a vampire would come up, you just whip out a crescent, a Star David, and a crucifix? Go, pick anyone. Which one? It's just, that's Mel Brooks' quirky humor.
So you're saying with your game that you're going to have 3 maps like already printed out, and you'll have like a counter representing your character as you move across the map?
Right. Yeah. It's actually 1 map with 3 levels on it. So when the game starts, the rooms, you put a counter in it upside down, and when you enter the room, you flip over the counter, and the counter says what monster is in there and what treasure.
Okay, so you'll have a handful of counters representing, the rooms that you can kind of shuffle up.
No. The rooms are printed there, but the rooms have a counter in it. So 39 of the counters are monster/treasure things that you put in the rooms that if you flip over when you enter it.
Oh, I got you. And what's the one? Just you?
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
What about the rule book? Is that going to be printed or do like a player aid type deal?
Yeah, I'm trying to get it where everything fits on 2 to 3 pages. 2 to 3 pages plus charts. Well, the charts are actually going to be on the map too, but I'm going to have them in the rule book too. So I want the rule book to be it'll be about 4 pages with charts and stuff maximum. I'm trying to keep everything small because I want it to be super cheap to manufacture so anyone can afford it.
See, and that's the thing, is that I've seen so many games recently that were small, like you're describing, that have done extremely well. People looking for something that's portable, easy to set up. So many are putting out these huge experiences, but most people can't play it. They don't have the time or the space to set it up. One that I got recently, I really got a kick out of, was Deck Box Dungeon. Have you ever heard of that one?
A 1-deck dungeon?
No, not 1-deck dungeon. Deck Box Dungeon.
That one I haven't heard of.
Yeah, I confused the two at first too, but this one, it's a different shape box. It's shaped just like a card box. It's just a little thicker. But similar principle to what you're talking about, with the exception that instead of being a printed map, the map pieces are on the cards themselves. There's a card to represent your character, and gear and treasure and crap like that as you move through. But it actually comes with these tiny little meeple pieces that you use to move across the little card size maps that you can kind of plug together. It's a real cool system. But my whole point in saying that is that I think your design could actually do really well, because look how well Four Against Darkness was a D100 dungeon or something like that has done. One Deck Dungeon, all those games have done extremely well, even though they're such a small package.
Being that you're talking about something with only 40 counters and with a couple of pages of maps and a small rule book. The other option to do is to self-publish through like War Game Vault or something like that, or Drive-Thru RPG, where people can actually print and play it.
True.
And that way it'll be easier. That way you don't have to worry about manufacturing costs.
True. I know of a place that can print up, I think it's 40 counters. If you order enough, you can get it done for like $1. So that would be like that, and the map. The map would be probably about $1 too. So probably the whole thing I could put together for about $4 if I self-published it and sell it for like $9.99.
Yeah, but if you put it together for $4, you got to go the rule of fives for publishing. You got to charge 20.
Oh, okay.
That's how the game companies have to do their business, because they have to cover their overheads. But if you're
he doesn't have any overhead,
then you don't have to worry about it, which is really good. So you can do something like that for $4 to manufacture and then $10 price, and then you just keep the $6, which wouldn't be a bad gig.
Yep.
Yeah, his overhead literally is over his head. That's it. One house.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all you got to worry about.
John says, U.S. Marine Squad, 1943 versus vampires. Talk among yourselves. Talking about we're still on that DVG Warfighter Fantasy, I guess. That little crossover there.
I was wondering what he was talking about. Is that a game that I missed somewhere?
So what other games you got going, Dave?
I got let's see, what would be, there's another one. It's like a paragraph game. It's called Julius Caesar on Mars, where the Roman god of war goes to Julius Caesar after some of his exploits in Gaul and tells him, "You owe me." And he lives this god on Mars, and there's aliens there who worship him, and the aliens are fighting among themselves, and the god doesn't want to interfere. He'd rather have Julius Caesar interfere. So he takes Julius Caesar and the 10th Legion and his buddy Labienus, and they go over there, and they have to put down all these alien revolts. And the battles are supposed to play out like some of the battles in Gaul and in Britain and stuff. And one of the aliens would be kind of like Macedonian successors. Julius Caesar never fought anything like a Macedonian phalanx. So if you have a sci-fi game, you can actually get away with doing it. That's one thing I like about sci-fi stuff, is you can do stuff you can't get away with in a historical game.
This is true. So you can explore other possibilities and some wackiness too at the same time. So what new stuff do you have coming to your channel? Because I know recently you were asking for some feedback as to what you would like to have, what your audience would like to see, I should say.
Case Blue. They want Case Blue.
I was thinking I want to do a few things or more stuff that isn't like an unboxing or a review. So I was thinking one thing to do is to go over some of my favorite reviews that I wrote that were on my website. And another thing, go over IP-based war games that don't suck. IP-based would be like war games based on movies, books, or TV shows or something. Because in the board game industry, there's a lot of stuff based on IP, and it's just terrible. But there's some in wargaming that are really good, like Starship Troopers, for one, or Aliens, the board game and stuff, are really good. Nice. And Rogue Trooper from Games Workshop, that was another one based on a comic book that was really good.
Hold up, which Aliens, the board game, are you saying is really good? Because there's a couple
leading edge games. The board game that came out in the
80 or 90?
89. Yeah, it also had miniatures for it and stuff.
So not one that I've played.
Probably not. No.
Now, you know they're actually coming out with another Aliens board game, though, right?
Oh, yeah, I heard something about that. I haven't seen any previews of it, but I'm sure
No one
I'll
has.
like it.
No one has seen anything on it because, for whatever reason, Gale Force 9 is being extremely close-lipped about it. It's called Another Glorious Day in the Core, and they've, shown pictures of all the minis and stuff, but not a lot of talk about what the gameplay is going to be, which kind of does suck because I really want to hear more about it.
I took a chance and ordered that thing.
Well, I'll be doing that too. Kabuki was asking, who remembers Revolt and Antares, the old TSR minigame? Dave, you would probably be the best one to remember.
Yeah, I think I reviewed that earlier this year. I played it. I can't remember if I reviewed it. I review a game every week. I think I reviewed it. I'll check to be sure, but I'm pretty sure I did.
Nice. And she's saying that Aliens from Leading Edge is a great 1989 one. Also, there's an RPG. Don't mix them up.
Yeah, the RPG, the board game from Leading Edge Games was wonderful. The RPG is one of the worst role-playing games I ever played. It was so crazy. I'm not crazy. They had stuff like if you get wounded, you're going to bleed to death unless you get operated on within a certain period of time. And so it had all this detail that distracted from the fun of the game. And the rule book was just terrible. The rule book didn't even really teach you how to play the game. It was just... that was the worst product that Leading Edge Games put out, was that Alien role-playing game.
Really?
It kind of sounds like it didn't do its job, because the rulebook is supposed to kind of teach you how to play the game.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you learn it if the rulebook doesn't teach you how to play?
They'll figure it out when they're playing.
I got a copy of that somewhere in the house. I don't even know why I still have it. I guess I just got it because it looks cool or something, but... people are paying like crazy prices for it, like $90 and stuff. I don't know why.
For which one?
For Aliens, the role-playing game.
Oh, wow. Now we
Probably just because it's rarer to find.
Yeah.
Exactly. Got a special request from John Longshore. A game I really hate, and how do you review it with a lighter?
Oh, yeah.
There's some new content for the channel right there.
Yeah, there you go.
I guess it would depend on the game.
Well, this was sent in from so-and-so, and I played it, and I agree. This game sucks. So, hey, to the fire. That would be kind of funny to do something.
Hopefully it wouldn't be a publisher that we were on good terms with, though.
That would be the only thing, is you might burn bridges, literally, which would not be a good thing.
Some publishers get mad if you point out the deficiencies in their games.
They can. Have you run into that with in your reviewing?
Yeah, I won't mention the company's name. I reviewed a game that was about the Iran-Iraq war, and the game was just god-awful, the worst rule book I ever saw in my life. And the rule book is referring to the hexes on the map as like A9 and B2 and B3, but on the map, they're identified like by 4-digit numbers and no letters, so the map wasn't even right. I don't even know if it was a right map or what. And it had some... it didn't have zones of control, so you could like move your tank into the zone of control of an enemy, fire at him. If you miss, the other enemy can go around you and hit you in the rear, and then if he misses, you go around. So it's like a dance you're playing on the board. I don't know. I just thought it was one of the worst war games I ever played. So I was very professional about it. I pointed out all the deficiencies, and there was a few good things about the game, so I pointed those out too. So it was not even 12 hours later that this guy emailed me just furious, and saying that I wasn't playing the game right, and I'm overstepping my authority as a reviewer, just being real butthurt and stuff. So I calmly explained that these are the problems with your game and you need to fix them, and blah, blah, blah. And he was just very angry, so I don't want to deal with that guy. I paid for the game. It would be one thing... first of all, once in a while I get a game for free from a manufacturer, but I don't care if it's a shitty game. I'll say it's a shitty game, even though I got it for free. But this one I paid for, so I don't owe this guy anything. I mean, his game sucked, and I pointed out what was wrong with it. If he doesn't like it, too bad. I mean, too bad.
That's the way it is. I mean, you got to be honest, and you also have to do it in the right way. But you said you were professional about it. But if sometimes when you review a game, and even if you give it a good review and you point out some negative things, you can get some grief. From people.
Yeah, that happens too.
It's kind of funny. It's like you want it all to be glowing. It's like, well, your stuff is generally positive. It's like, yeah, because I'm not going to waste my time on stuff that sucks. I've played games that I go, yeah, I was going to review this, but this isn't worth my time. It's going to almost feel like a hit piece because I'm going to be like, yeah, okay, here's this game. It's a steaming pile, or it's just not developed or whatever. You could do a review like that, but
you kind of got to, though.
Well,
You've
no,
got to.
My thing is, if you play a game and you don't even finish the game because you're like, this is not for me, and it's garbage, or it's garbage, one of the two. It's tough to review a game if you're not into it. If it's not a game for you, it'd be like me reviewing deck builders. Deck building mechanic is okay in games to a point. I don't want it to be the entire game. That's, for me, that just doesn't work. So I'm going to go in with a negative bias right off the bat because I don't like deck building. If it's a part of the game, I'm okay with it. Like Undaunted Normandy, that's part of the game. It's a big part of the game, but it's part of the game. But if it was just completely solely a deck builder, probably not. I'm probably going to give it a negative review because I'm going to have a negative vibe off of it right off the bat because I'm just not into them.
Yeah, but one thing
go ahead, Dave.
Oh, I was going to say, the one thing that irritates me the most, I've played, just like you guys, I've played a lot of games. And the thing that irritates me the most is you pick up a rule book and you read the rule book, everything seems okay, and then you go to set up the game and you're following the setup section, and the setup section is completely wrong. And it's like, my God, it's like, did anyone even play test this? How did this not come to light the first time someone played the game? It's like, it's just baffling when that happens.
Like the map. Okay, I got to set the guy B12. Well, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 6, 7, 4. This isn't on the map. Where do I put these guys? That's the type of thing that production needs to be done better. And now, I'll be honest here. In a situation like that where production was bad like that, I probably would do a review to point that out. So that way, that would be a warning to people. Listen, this game, I don't know what they were doing, or if they got their manifest wrong as far as what was supposed to go in what. Maybe they sent the wrong files to the printer, but they should have caught that QC before it went out the door to customers, because this is not a full game. This is broken, and here's why. Just to warn people about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you've got to take and cover. It's one thing not to cover a game because it's not your type of game. That's fine. And I've had a couple of games that I've tried that I came to find out over the course of filming it that it just wasn't my type of game, and I didn't give it a glowing review, but I didn't hate on it. I just let people know the game's not necessarily bad, but it's not for me, right? Yeah. That's fine. That's neither here nor there, and they can decide for themselves. But I think if a game is generally bad or has rulebook issues or whatever, then you're almost obligated to review it so you can show people those issues, because that's what they're looking for. If they only see reviews from people who are only giving glowing reviews, and then they try the game and they're like, well, the game's not good, why didn't they point this out? They're not going to trust you anymore. They're not going to believe what you're saying. They're going to think you're shilling and bought off.
One thing in the war game industry, a lot of these war games don't show what the components look like. That's why I do a lot of unboxing videos, especially on the old stuff, because if someone comes across something that looks interesting to them on eBay, at least they can see the unboxing video and see what's inside it, what the components look like. Because a lot of war games, even on the box, it doesn't show what's in there.
True.
Yeah, maybe a picture of a map, a couple of counters or something like that, but you're not entirely sure what's in the box until you open it.
True. Stigler says if you spend time to learn a game preparatory to a review, you should carry it through, positive or negative. And then he says, I, for one, would appreciate somebody warning me off of a turd before I spend good money on it. But, the old saying is, what's one man's garbage is another man's treasure. So True. I may say it's a turd, and, Stigler may go, what's he talking about? He's smoking crack. This is a great game. Different tastes. And that's one of the things. You have to get to know the reviewer and the content creator and what their likes are. And if they are like, yeah, this is a fun game, then you're going to know, okay, it was fun. Not something I necessarily need to run out and get, but a good game. But if somebody says, this is a fantastic game, this is a really good game, you should really look at it. If you're into these types of games, then you're going to pay a little more attention and say, yeah, I kind of like those types of games. And I agree with this reviewer's opinion. So let me go look at this game a little bit more.
Yeah. There was one by Decision Games. What's the name of that game? The Galactic
Oh, Struggle for the Galactic Empire. I wasn't a fan of that game.
Yeah,
Which
see,
one?
I think the game itself was all right, a decent solitaire game, but I didn't like the components. Like, I was really hating on the components.
Yeah, it was $60, and all that included was a paper map and two pages of counter, or 2 sheets of counters. So it's like, what am I paying $60 for? It's like, this isn't much more than a folio game.
Oh, yeah, Struggle for the Galactic Empire.
Yep.
Yeah. So when I reviewed it, I was honest with people about it. Like, I really don't like the counters. They're tearing apart. They're not very well made. Yeah, and the thing was, the game wasn't bad. I think there was a decent game in it. But something I found is that companies that I've reviewed, who, if I've reviewed something in theirs that I haven't given a glowing review to, they don't tend to reach out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of them take things personally when it's not a personal attack. It's a criticism that needs to be addressed. And I had mentioned this to Mo recently. I actually had a designer that contacted me after I had given one of his games a mediocre review because they had component problems. And they're like, hey, we've updated all this stuff. We've corrected these problems. We want to send you the game again so you can review it now. I'm like, great, let's do it. And been working with them. I think that's awesome. You know, and not necessarily just for me, but just if you see something that's wrong and they're pointing it out, fix it and let them do it again and show them that. Having someone turn around and say, yep, it wasn't good before, it's great now, is the best type of publicity, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, if you do something where you kind of rip into a game and then they reach out and they say, hey, listen, you and a lot of people said this and we listened and you're right and we're making it right by doing this. And that's where you show a video and say, listen, I ripped this game apart or not necessarily ripped it apart, but I was really harsh on the components. For example, the components were bad and then they had some issues in the rules. Well, the designer reached out to me, the publisher reached out to me. They are aware of this and they're taking steps to correct it. Here are the new counters and look at the difference between the old and the new. This is a fantastic step up. And then the rules, they were 12 pages before, now it's 14 because they've added 2 pages of corrections or odd or whatever. And they've polished it up. You can download the rules from their website. You can get new counters or whatever. That would be something where people would be on board with that and it would make them, I think, a little bit more appreciative of the fact and maybe give that publisher or designer another look.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. I like it when I've had stuff where I've mentioned something about a game and then like I noticed like a month later the manufacturer came out with a errata with a correction to what I found there and stuff, which I think is kind of cool. So they read it and they saw that there's a mistake in the rules and now they got errata, so people are playing with more workable rules now. So that's kind of cool.
Nice.
Well, I think some designers and publishers, you know, depending on how much they do in-house, run into the problem of that the tunnel vision and the fact that they've been looking at this product for a year, 2 years, however long they've been producing it, and the error can be right there in front of them and they just can't see it. And I think that's the problem they run into, is they don't have enough outside eyes looking at it. And if you don't get those outside eyes to take a peek, like I've played a game before where it was, like Mo was saying earlier, almost guaranteed they did not have someone else look at it.
Right.
There was no way that it was missed unless they just did not have it play tested. And it can happen to anybody, you know. Mm-hmm. You've got to have someone who's outside of your inner circle giving it a go.
Yeah. Well, I'm a software engineer, as I mentioned before the video. And we do a lot of testing and stuff. And one thing I've found is, like, if I write code and I test my own code, when I'm done testing, I'm like, I got this licked. There's nothing wrong with it. When then they do user acceptance testing and they do something so irrational that breaks your code, it's like you never would have thought someone would have been so stupid to do that. But that's why when you test stuff, you have to have someone test who had nothing to do with either creating a game or creating software or something, because they're going to do something so irrational that you just couldn't have thought of it. Or I mean, look, like with games, like you got a lot of rule books that say you can move some, none, or all of your units. Well, it's just assumed that to 99% of wargamers, but if you get someone who's never wargamed before, they're probably not going to notice that. So there's like a lot of stuff in rule books they have to put in for the rules lawyers or for people who have never played a board game before or something.
Well, that's where a good playtester does what you just said. They'll come in and they won't play the game by the rules. They won't say, yeah, okay. Most of us will sit down and say, okay, I'm going to move these tanks and these infantry this way, and I'm going to fight, boom, 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 roll the dice. Yeah, everything mechanically works. The math seems to work. Everything's good. It's a good game. Then you're going to have that person that comes along and says, all right, let's attack with air here, and then we'll throw in artillery from here because it doesn't say I can't fire past 2 hexes, and let's do this. Hey, I just broke your game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no one ever does that because everybody does this. That's right, because they're doing it preconceived notions. They're following those.
Right.
They're not saying, well, what do you tell me I can't do? Because if you don't tell me I can't do it, I'm going to do it. And that's how you find out if the game's broken or not, or the rules are broken. Not necessarily broken, but if you allowed too much latitude, you're not keeping them in that cage that you want them to stay in for the game experience. That the rules are supposed to, that boundaries, I should say, not cage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There can be just a minor flaw here or there that it's kind of like X-Wing. I found, I don't know if you've ever played that game before, but the word may can be such a huge difference. You know, words like may or will, always, stuff like that makes a huge difference on like the rules on how things are going to be performed. So they have to be very specific on the exact wording that they put down, whether it's may do something, will do something, you know, stuff like that. And war games are no different.
Yeah.
Yeah, Magic the Gathering, they're real particular about using the word may too. Actually, in the larger rule set for it, it actually defines what the word may means, just so everyone knows, because it's a common word in there. Because a lot of, I don't know, apparently there's people who don't understand that may and must don't mean the same thing.
Yeah. It's the same in X-Wing. May do something does not mean must do something.
Yeah.
Stigler said something. I couldn't read what it said, though.
But the other great point by Gimpy, it is so easy to get this close to something and miss the most obvious errors, but that is what playtesting's for.
Yeah. It's like I said, I love DVG. I love the people at DVG. They do great jobs. But like with Corsair Leader, I think they didn't get that one playtested enough. That's why there was a little bit more errata than normal with that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not me hating on them. It's just the fact that they lived and breathed that game for 2 years, however long they were working on it. So some stuff they just became numb to. There could have been a huge glaring error in front of them and they just couldn't see it. It's not an affront against them personally. It can happen to anybody. I've done it in my life. I've put up videos before that I thought everything was perfect. And then down in the comments, everybody's like, you messed this up. You messed this up. You messed this up. You messed this up. Like, assholes.
I do that too. I'll look at a video and I'll do a review and I'm like, why did I repeat the same phrase twice? Idiot. Why didn't I catch that? You know, and then I'll be like, yeah, this is a really good game. And when you play this really good game, it's a really good game. Wow, what an idiot.
I don't do that.
Stuff like that.
I don't do that many playthroughs, but there's been a few where I did them, and I did the playthrough, I recorded it, and then when I was sitting in front of my Mac editing the video, I realized I just completely screwed up 2 of the turns, so I had to throw the tape out, or not the tape, the video out, and reshoot the video because I screwed up the game so bad.
Yeah. Well, I just did a review. I released it yesterday for Ratton Creek, which is from Yacht Magazine.
Oh,
what's that?
Oh, are you talking about the postcard game or?
No, not the postcard game. The Ratton Creek is done by Yacht Magazine, Flying Pig Productions. Their magazine. Okay. It's not the postcard one. This is actually a bigger game.
Gotcha.
It's still a magazine game. It's solo tactical Stalingrad. Fun game. The only things I kind of hit it on, which are, proper in my opinion, is the components are substandard. The printing on the counter sheets was off. So you're getting stuff shifted up, and it says rifle, and it's right on the top where the counter gets cut off. You can see it, you can read it. It's not game breaking, but it's annoying, and it just makes the counters look crappy. The punches didn't go all the way through on all of the counters, but this is something I've seen, a systemic problem I've seen with their magazine games. They did have an improvement, and I didn't go into all this in the review because I was trying to keep the review short, but they got away from the stickiness on a lot of their counters is gone, which is a step in the right direction. But there was some misprints, the counter printing was off, there was a mirrored number on the grenades, things like that. Not game breaking. So the game is still fun to play. It's just, man, if they could just step their QC up, it would just make the game that much of a better presentation. And it was, it's just a positive criticism of it because it didn't break the game. Just, you're paying $40 for a magazine and a game in it, and the game should be better presentation, in my opinion.
No, yeah, I can get that.
I remember when magazine games were, $12 or something?
Yeah, those days are long gone.
Yeah.
Now you're looking at $35, $40.
Yeah.
But now, a question for the audience, question for you guys. I know Nate and I have talked about this. Nate started doing this, and I'm kind of in the process of trying to do this. What is everybody's opinion on, or what would everybody like to see as far as review times for videos for war games? How long would you like to see war game videos be? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, 20, 25, 30, an hour, or whatever. Get some feedback. I just want to see what everyone's doing here because Gimpy and I have talked about doing shorter ones. I know Nate's already started by doing 5-minute reviews. That's my goal too, but I don't know if I can do a review in 5 minutes. To be that concise is just, I don't know. I kind of tend to start talking about parts of the game and it can run long.
It's amazing how much you can cut out.
That's true.
For me, I try to, the unboxing videos, I try to do 5 to 10 minutes, closer to 5. And then, playthroughs take forever. I don't do that many of those, though. But the few reviews that I do that are on video, those usually take about a half hour because I play the game first and then review it. But, yeah, if there's a way to do it shorter, that might be an interesting idea.
Well, I found that people want, everyone wants stuff quick now. They want, now. So I still do the long playthroughs that I normally do, but I'm going back to some of those playthroughs that I've done and doing just the quick highlights of the game. The components, good or bad. This is basically how you play the game and whether or not you should buy it, try to get it on sale, or pass on it. I say all that in 5 minutes, and I found that those are actually getting decent views. People are positive about it. So it's not going to be something that I switch to, but just do in addition to what I'm already doing. So if someone wants just the quick down and dirty, they can look at the 5-minute review. And if they want to see how the game plays, they can watch the whole playthrough.
Now, Todd, the itinerant hobbyist, otherwise known as the wardrobe, because of the robe. If you don't watch Todd's videos, he's always wearing the cool robe. He's got that really awesome smoking jacket, as I like to call it, but hence the name. Says, you know how to avoid having to remake videos because of rules mistakes? You play live and look like a fool in rules and tactics mistakes. I've been shooting for the best in mediocrity since 2012. And let me tell you something. His videos are fantastic. They're a lot of fun, and he puts out a lot of great content. And there is something to be said about somebody who will just sit there and shoot a live video and not worry about necessarily the best editing and everything else. Just go out there and shoot and have more of you feel like you're sitting there in the room with the person, and that has its own charm too. But it looks like we are getting some feedback here. We've got John saying, I've sat through Callendale's 2-hour videos, so it depends.
Callendale he's an enigma. He doesn't count. Callendale is just Callendale.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that's the only way to put that one.
Yeah.
But the one thing is the Callendale drinking game. I want to start that going here. When you're watching a Callendale video, take a drink every time he lights his pipe. See if you can make it through the entire review without being hammered.
I'll tell you what. When I first started getting into war games, he was one of the guys I was watching because there were very few who covered stuff as in depth as he did.
That's true. Very true.
And watching his videos is almost like watching a live video because he does he doesn't break. Like when I look up the rules or try to confirm something, most of the time I'll cut that part out. He doesn't. He shows filming in the rule book and, you know, moving back and forth across his room and doing all the other stuff. So you really do kind of feel like you're in there with him.
Well, you know.
Yeah.
For like 30 seconds and you're still watching, you know, it's like, okay, you know, but there's a charm to that, and that's his thing. But me personally, I like to try to make my reviews more condensed, because the hardest part for me is actually getting time to shoot video. So I don't have an easy way of shooting video, so I have to really plan and then crank out a bunch of videos at the same time.
I got a question for you, Mo. I've noticed when you do your videos, you got some games with some really big maps, and when I'm doing those, even with the tripod all the way up and the camera on the widest angle, I can't get the whole map in the video. Are you suspending your camera from the ceiling or something to get the whole map in there, or do you just got a real wide lens, or what are you doing?
No, I've just got the camera up on the tripod, and it's like literally right here next to me, and then I'm sitting there and I'm doing my thing here, and it's just shooting down. I just widen it all the way out.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I should get a wider lens then, because mine, I usually can't get the whole map in the video, which gets annoying because I got to move the camera around and stuff, so it doesn't look that good on video.
What kind of camera are you shooting with?
A Canon EOS 70D.
Okay, you're using an DSLR. I'm just using a regular Handycam.
Oh, okay.
That's all. I'm just, because I'm not sophisticated. I don't use DSLRs. I just use the Handycam, and then I got a mic, clip-on mic, a lav mic I use, and then I edit my video and then do a little bit of post-processing, try to clean up some stuff and post it up. But that's the one thing that people don't even realize. For like an unboxing video, you shoot it, you edit it, you know, you have to run through your editing, then you have to render it, and then you got to upload it. That's anywhere from 2 to 6 hours, depending on how long the video is and how many corrections you have to make, and then waiting for YouTube to process the damn thing, which could take forever.
I used to have my internet through Comcast, and when I would upload a YouTube video, like a 8-minute YouTube video would take like close to 40 minutes to upload. Where I moved to now, I have AT&T, and their upload speeds are like 25 times faster than Comcast. So it takes me like 90 seconds to upload a 8-minute video now.
Nice.
Yeah, Comcast just sucks.
Yeah.
I will give you a bit of advice. Something that I use is a metal bar that attaches to the top of my tripod, and it goes out far enough that I can get a horizontal, like top-down view if I want. And the tripod goes up to, it's something like 7.5 feet or so if I extend it all the way up. So with that extending out, I can have the view coming down to cover the table at a fairly wide angle, just depending on what I'm covering. Or if I need it back some, you can rotate that. And then also with that bar extension, you can get the camera to a fairly high angle. Although that does kind of require a step stool to go up to adjust the camera once you get it in the right spot. So there are little adjustments that you can make just depending on how wide you need it to be. But the thing that I have had good luck with is a handheld gyro that I use for filming, because it helps to take out the shakiness that I have in my hands.
Oh, interesting.
And yeah, I use that more often than not when I'm filming, because it's got a small little tripod at the base that I can set down if I'm going to be filming a certain segment for an extended period of time, but then I can pick it up and move it around, and it's a lot steadier than just holding the camera with my hand.
Cool. See, now when I did that first impressions video of Greek Border Wars, that was just off the cuff. I just had a little tripod. I put that down. I put my camera on it, or not my camera, my phone on it, and just shot an impromptu video with that. And that one actually worked out pretty good. And that's what started me thinking, man, maybe I should do reviews in a shorter format, because people were like, hey, thanks for the review. I'm like, that was just my initial thoughts. It wasn't a review. Then I just shot a 30-minute review, and to me, I think it should have got more hits, but I was like, man, all that effort went into this review. I took all these notes, and I have this thing, and I think I can just condense my notes a lot shorter and do a 5 to 10 minute review.
I think that's what people want. Shorter.
Yeah. So any last questions? I've already asked, but I wanted to get one last go through here. If there's any last questions for anybody, for Dave. And like I said before, if you've not gone to his channel, the Centurions Review is the name of the channel. Go and subscribe now, because he does a lot of great content, covers a lot of really unique stuff, and I think it's very much worth your time to go check it out. And
did you link his blog too?
Yes, I did earlier on. Let me get that here.
See, good stuff you can do with a computer. I can't do it with my little tablet that I'm working off here. I don't know what's going on with my laptop. It just won't cut on right now. It just stopped. Nothing. The little light comes on, like when you plug in the power, but nothing else works.
Lights on
Pain
the
in
phone?
ass. Yeah, pretty much.
Kind of like you.
Yep, like every Marine. Ate one too many crayons.
Exactly. We ate the wrong crayons. That's the problem right there. That's the website. And like I said, the blog, centurionsreview.com. And then you can also go to his channel, centurionsreview.com, and check out all the really cool content that he's got coming out on a regular basis. You put out videos like what, 3-4 times a week?
Yeah, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and sometime during the week I'll put a review out, usually on my website. So
nice. That's a really good steady stream of content. I'm always getting an alert that you put another video out. So check it out. So definitely great to see that. And thanks for taking the time tonight, Dave, to come join us. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Definitely, and keep us posted as far as when your game is going to be published. I want to check it out.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like something I would enjoy.
Cool.
Definitely. Well, like I said, thanks again, Dave, and everybody go check out centurionsreview.com and check out his YouTube channel at Centurions Review as well. And you are also on Twitter, are you not?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, and I think that's it. Yeah.
Nate is anti-social media.
No, I'm anti-Twitter.
Twitter is good for if you curate your feed, you can weed out all the garbage and just get the good more game content. That's what I do.
It seems like too many people get on Twitter now just to complain and gripe about stuff.
This is the world we live in. But instead, we'll just worry about and complain about war games and other games and bad rule books.
Yep.
Well, we'll let you guys know when the next show is going to be. We'll be having one here in a couple of weeks. We just have to work out a date. But thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. Really appreciate it. And again, thanks to our special guest, Dave Lent from Centurions Review.com. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Have a good night, everyone.